Hi, and welcome to this episode of HR and Cocktails. Welcome to the Speakeasy. Today we have Aime Karam from Paycor.
Hi.
Hi, Aime. And today we're going to be talking about HR systems and data and how business can use the data. So, Aime, welcome to the Speakeasy.
Thanks, excited to be here. It looks great.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so my name's Aime Karam. I'm a regional sales director at Paycor, and I've been in the role almost a year now. It's my first kind of leader role, and I've worked with Paycor for 2 years. So we're a technology company that helps HR folks optimize their people so that they can get the most out of their biggest asset.
Yes, absolutely. And it's very important. And so I'm glad we're able to have this conversation today to highlight that. But before we get into the details of how Paycor helps organizations, let's make a drink first.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Ready.
So what drink do you want today?
I've been loving the espresso martinis lately, so.
All right. Awesome. An espresso martini coming up. So, Aime, you chose an espresso martini for your drink.
Yeah, I did.
All right. So what about the espresso martini that makes you want to choose this for your drink?
I'm getting a little older, and as you age, you might need a little pick-me-up around 8:39, so it keeps the party going.
All right.
Or a 9 a.m. cocktail.
Exactly. So we're going to get started. We're going to start with our vodka. So for this drink, we need 2 parts vodka. So we'll just pour it right into our shaker.
You gotta keep those heavy.
Yeah, okay. I definitely
we like
will.
A stiff
All right.
martini.
All right, do a little a little extra there. All right, so 2 parts vodka, 1 part Kahlua or any type of coffee liqueur. There are a few of them out there, so you choose the one that works for you.
We did a Christmas party where we just had all different types of Baileys, so like a s'mores and caramel, and everyone got to build their own.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Good idea for you. All right, and then we're gonna do a 1/2 part of simple syrup. I don't like mine too sweet.
Me neither.
So just a 1/2 part of simple syrup. And then the difficult part, pouring the espresso out of this
Might
glass.
need a bar towel.
I know. Yeah.
Oh.
All right.
Okay.
Oh, well. It'll
just
work.
us.
It'll work. Exactly. So then we're going to put some ice in our shaker. If I can get it in here. All right. There we go. Or not. Okay, there we go. All right, and then we're gonna shake it. So you wanna shake it for at least 30 seconds. I usually don't shake it that long because I'm eager to get to my drink. So here we go.
Eager for the beverage.
Exactly.
We'll do a better pour this time.
Yes, exactly.
I also love how cold it gets.
It
the
does.
shaken cocktail.
It does, and the ice.
Yeah, like little flakes of ice. It's so
exactly.
pleasant.
All right, so I usually just pour it using this strainer right here. That looks pretty good. All right. All right. Perfect. Yes, and then we have to do our garnish, which is a couple of coffee beans that we just put on top. There we go.
Perfect.
All right. Okay, awesome.
Oh, thank you. Cheers.
All right,
Cheers.
Aime, cheers. All right, let's take a sip.
Perfect and strong.
Yes, it is strong. The espresso, I kind of overdid the espresso today.
Never enough for me. So.
Awesome. So, you said that Paycor is a technology company, right? Mm-hmm. So talk to us a little bit about the technology that, Paycor provides.
Yeah, so when you think about HR technology, I think HR people have so many different things on their plate now, right? At some point, we were collecting immunizations, we're collecting data on our people, we have to collect time cards, we got to do there's just so much on your plate. And so the ecosystem that we live in is really important. So, the buzzword is from hire to retire. We want to help you with applicant tracking, onboarding, HR, performance, benefits, whatever. But I think the real differentiator for Paycor is that we know that businesses have certain products that they might need to interact with that are outside of Paycor. It might be industry specific. It might be something that the CFO likes, has used in another life. We want to allow the flexibility of that, right? So that you can scale and grow while using Paycor as like the home base. So
yeah, and I definitely appreciate that, because when we go into businesses, they have sometimes this system and that system and this system, and they're utilizing several systems that don't speak to each other. So Paycor offers organizations the opportunity to have most of those things all in one, speaking to each other, so there's not multiple places of data entry.
Right.
And it really helps for more accurate data, right? So I think that a lot of people, when they hear Paycor, they think payroll.
They will pay,
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, of course, payroll is important. People want to get paid. They want to get paid correctly. They want to get paid on time. But can you help our audience better understand the reason that, yes, people want to get paid, but that's what you all do. But why are the other pieces important in one system?
Yeah, there's a couple of different factors. So somewhere in the early 2000s, there was a shift in like understanding of what the HR department did for an organization. It went from being a cost center to being a revenue generator. If we understand our people, if we can inspire them to align with the company's mission, we're going to get more bandwidth out of them, right? And we're in a unique situation now where a lot of people work from home. We're seeing a younger generation of the workforce. We see baby boomers retiring in the workforce, and there's nobody really to replace them, because nobody has been in their career. I'm a millennial. I haven't been in my career for more than 20 years, and I'm replacing someone who likely has been a sales leader for 10 plus years, right? So we have to help bridge the gap, help companies find new leaders, and then empower their leaders to develop those winning teams. And what you're talking about, the payroll, that's really the baseline. Every company that's selling you payroll should be able to pay your employees on time. They should be able to do your taxes correctly, right? And that should be the fundamentals of your system. But where we take it to the next level is helping you with retention, right? Doing AI recruiting. And so there are like second and third level pieces of the HR department that can really optimize the company. And we see that as empowering your leaders.
It definitely does. And I will just say that I am a Gen X, so I have been in my career for more than 20 years. But I've seen so much in the world of HR. I mean, when I came into HR in the early 2000s, it was personnel. It was just becoming HR. I mean, it has since become everything else under the sun, human capital, and I think they've decided on some new names for it, right?
But if you say HCM, people are gonna be like, what?
Exactly. That's exactly right. But you're right that, really having that data, being able to really look at retention, recruitment, all of those things, having those things tied together is very important. So let's talk about recruitment. You said that your organization does AI recruiting, right? So what does AI recruiting mean, and how can using a system, because I will say this, I've still gone into some organizations that are printing resumes and calling people and writing notes on resumes, which is what I did when I got into HR recruiting in 2001. Okay. So in 2023, we should not be printing resumes and writing notes on the resume. I called them and left a message at this time, right? Yeah. So talk about what AI recruiting is and how a system can help manage the recruitment process.
Yeah, Paycor acquired a company last year called Talenia. Talenia was an Israeli company that was really like flipping on its head the recruiting process. And Talenia scrapes 3.2 billion profiles on the internet. So they might not be job profiles. They might not be on LinkedIn. It's across the web. And what Talenia did differently was that they automated the contact step in the process of like, hey, I've created this candidate profile. These are the types of people we're looking for. So what Talania did was reach out to them, and it also schedules the interview. So what it will do for you is you create that candidate profile, and then it should automate about 50% of your recruiting efforts by delivering you interview-ready candidates. And if you are a lean organization, you might not have an internal recruiter. It can save a lot of time and also just deliver those people right into your applicant tracking system. Some people, like government contractors, they need to hire specific people in specific areas, right? So we don't want someone in Florida if we're hiring for a job in Washington. It can make that step simple as well. So there's a lot of different functionalities that it can accomplish. It can also stop early on the contacting them, so you can just sift through the candidates that it has found if you want it to be a bit more personable of a touch.
Yeah, I really like that. And I think that AI has gotten a bit of a bad name recently. Yeah. People are like, I don't want AI. I don't want ChatGPT. It's going to change the world and the robots are going to take over. And the reality is that AI has been used for quite a while. Mm-hmm. It's just that now we're able to use it as consumers in a different way. Yeah. So I think it's important for people to not be afraid of the fact that like recruiting is AI now, because I mean, at the end of the day, we've been using it. Mm-hmm. When resumes were going through systems and they were parsing out words, I mean, that was, an older generation of AI, right?
Right.
So with my compliance hat on, okay, yes. And AI delivers me these, ready candidates, and you use the example of government contracting. What do I have available to me to be able to help me with my compliance? Because as a government contractor, tell people how many people did I look at, how many people applied. So what are some of the things that the system can do to help me manage my compliance requirements?
Yeah, so it can screen all of those EEO questions on the front end in your application, and then it generates the EEO reporting on the back end as well. So if you're collecting that data and you need to show where someone fell out of the process and why, it's going to be able to generate all of that information for you. It also helps with DE&I efforts, so you can search for DE&I candidates. So I think there's a couple different ways.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that, because getting to the point of data, looking at data in your recruiting process is really important. So you mentioned where they fell out. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times, we have conversations with our clients around, you need to look at the candidate experience. Yeah. And so where did they fall out of the process? Why did they not make it all the way through? Do you have too many steps? Is it too long? Is it taking you too long to respond? So talk to me a little bit about what type of reporting and data are available to organizations around the recruitment process specifically?
Yeah, so how long did it take is probably, I think, the best data point as a hiring manager myself. It is so competitive out there. The last person I hired had 3 offers by the time I got to her, right? And so you are constantly trying to fight for the best talent. And so you want to be able to see if you have a hiring manager who's taking a little extra time. That's not to say that they're a bad part or they're not a value add, but you need to see where those funnels in the process are, and maybe be a bit more proactive about that. So you'll be able to see time to fill certain jobs. You'll be able to see time in a stage, right? So if it takes us 50 days to get an offer out, we probably need to adjust our process. And someone who doesn't have an applicant tracking system, they're not going to think about that stuff. They've got to look at their resumes, print them out, put their, when do we have time to do all the analytics we need to do? Right. And you can filter it by department, right? So maybe your IT department, they've got it down. Great. What can we use from the IT department to teach our other managers how to be more efficient in this process? You can also see candidate source reports. So if I'm spending, $10,000, $15,000 on Indeed, maybe I'm getting a lot of applicants, but are they actually getting the offers at the end, right? So we're spending a lot of money in the marketplace, but then what tools do we have to analyze if that spend is giving us a return on our investment?
And I think that's really important, because I think that many businesses make anecdotal, yes, please, please have your drink. Yes, I will have mine as well. I think that a lot of organizations anecdotally determine where they're getting the most bang for the buck.
I feel like,
Exactly. I think that those people, and really having a real way to track and report on it.
Yeah.
Also, I think it's important for organizations to understand that you have to put the work into setting up your system to do these things. The system can do it,
yes,
but you have to set up the processes, the workflow, and make sure that you are utilizing the system so that those reports can actually give you meaningful data.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because on the drive here, I was just thinking about, what makes Paycor different. And we've had this conversation where people come to you and say, it's not working. But you have this nice anecdote that I use now, that it's a model home. When you see it in the demonstration, it's not done, and there's work to do to learn how to use it, which I can't own that for you, And so as a salesperson, that's probably the biggest challenge that my team comes across is we're making a deal to be partners. And part of that deal is that you guys learn how to use it. We'll support you, answer questions. But if you guys don't invest the time, that whoever purchased it from you, if you don't invest the time, it's not going to optimize your organization. Nothing is a silver bullet. And most likely, if you're struggling with customer support or you're struggling with there are a few basic things, right? That's not going to be solved by switching providers.
Right.
You should have a nice holistic approach to evaluating your current provider. Don't just move around because the price, because the service, make sure the functionality does what you need it to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will expect my royalty check for you using
my model home.
Exactly. But no, you're absolutely right. Like, you have to spend the time because if the challenge is workflows and not putting in good data, that's not going to change with a new system. It's just not.
Yeah.
So we talked about recruiting and data with recruiting. What other types of data do you find that organizations are looking for?
A lot of it is around turnover, because we're seeing a lot of people leave their jobs. They're leaving it for a growth opportunity. They're leaving it for more money, whatever it may be. They're leaving at alarming rates. And so, there are predictive analytics features for you to see which departments may have a higher risk of turnover, and that might be addressing a manager or addressing pay, right? So it's going to give you, again, a more proactive approach to the business. Also, just your DE&I efforts as far as how many women in leadership you have, right? Because there are data points that show that women in leadership make your company more profitable, right? So are you taking the steps to try new things? And if you try something, have you chosen analyses that will point you in the direction of success or failure, right? So whatever your organization is focused on, DE&I, turnover, engagement, choose 2 or 3 analyses that your HRIS offer so that you can evaluate success over a given period.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I definitely agree. I'm looking at my little notes here. So what do you find? So I know you all have clients of a variety of sizes. Our audience is mostly, smaller to mid-sized businesses. How do you find that they're leveraging the data, or are they leveraging the data? Or what are the opportunities for them to leverage data?
I meet an alarming number of people that are doing this in spreadsheets.
Yeah.
I mean, so many spreadsheets, and they're all color-coded and organized, and I'm so happy you have the spread, but we need to move past the spreadsheet now, because at some point HR is just doing data entry, and they're up to here in data entry and tasks that they shouldn't need to do, right? Because they're supposed to be optimizing their team. So most people are doing a lot of this stuff manually. I did have a conversation with the Dulles Sherm group last week about performance. And I asked, who's utilizing technology to have these career growth conversations? And 2 out of 12 were using technology for that. And I bet if I asked how many of you have remote employees, they would all raise their hand. So how are we going to engage our workforce when we don't have the technology to have more meaningful connections with them, and we're asking them to fill out a Word document? Then how do we track that year over year? How are we giving them the growth, right? If you're doing it on paper, you can't pull the data that you need to grow your organization.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And for our audience, SHRM is the Society for Human Resource Management, and they are the group that, if you are an amazing HR professional like me, you are a member of it. And so, the Dulles chapter and quite honestly, the metro area has some really great chapters and leadership, and the HR professionals that are in them get it. But sometimes it's not even HR that gets to decide on the technology. I mean, HR can make the recommendation. So for our listeners that are business owners and executives, it's really important, to Aime's point, not just to focus on the dollar amount. Yeah, exactly. The price tag.
How much does it cost?
Exactly. Because you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
You know, I can say, for me, when I first started, you know, I was using my accounting systems payroll because, I had 2 employees and that was what it was. But when I started to add employees, I was like, I really need a system. I will say that I use Paycor. And even for us, and I think that a lot of organizations that are smaller, because we only have 10 employees, right?
Yeah.
And they might say, well, I don't need a payroll system that has all of these things. You know, I don't want to pay for all of this stuff that I'm not going to use. The reality is that when you start to have it available to you, you will use it. So what's the business case? What business case would you give to an organization that's like, oh, I can just stay with my accounting system software because, you know, it's already included. It's like, you know, and I don't need to have something that robust. What's the business case?
Well, I think there's 2 answers. So looking at how robust something is, I mean, I can just give you payroll too, but what that payroll engine will do is it'll automate tax reciprocity, which is a huge burden on payroll professionals. And we were, you know, born in Cincinnati, Ohio, and Cincinnati, Ohio has some of the most complex tax laws in the country. And so, you know, that's just what we're good at. But it gives you time back in your day, number one. And if your people feel comfortable about their pay stub every week, right, they're not going to leave. Some of these industries that we talk to, restaurant, manufacturing, if they miss one pay period or their pay stub is consistently inaccurate, they're going to leave and you're going to have to replace them, which can cost 5 times their salary to replace them with someone who's as qualified as they are. So, you know, the stakes are however many employees you have times their annual salary to meet. There are a lot of HR professionals that, you know, when we get into this process, we get into this conversation, they're so excited. They want to see something new. They're doing it on paper, and then they have to get their CFO involved or their controller involved. And the biggest mistake, I think, just as a sales professional, is without those people involved, they can't truly see the benefit of going through this process and this evaluation. So as a salesperson, I'm leaning on the HR person to sell it for me, but my job is to show the value long term. Paycor has a number of ways to do that. We have a return on investment calculator, right? So we can actually show you the long-term savings based on what you're doing manually. So that's nice. Yeah. But you know, it really just depends on what they need. And we go through the full process, and hopefully whoever makes that ultimate decision wants to be part of the conversation.
Yeah. And I think it's important, you know, yes, I think that, you know, human resources professionals understand the need for those things.
Yes.
And that's why I feel it's really important to make sure that those other stakeholders are there. So when we're involved, so we at Prescott HR, we will facilitate some of those conversations with our clients when we're making some recommendations on systems. And for us, it's like every stakeholder needs to be in the room for this demonstration, because it's not just one person who's involved, because, you know, accounting needs reports from the system. So they need to understand how the reports are going to come out. You know, managers need to understand the process for approving time and approving time off, and how to submit a new hire, even a pay change. They need to understand what that process is going to look like and give input into that process. So it's really in benefits as well, right? Yeah. So it's going to be really important for everyone to be involved in that process, because it's so interesting to me that they say, well, you know, HR go find a system, right, and you weigh in on it and veto it. And it's like, well, if you were interested in it, then you should have been in the room when those conversations were happening. So it's really important for all the stakeholders to be involved. So when you talked a little bit ago about predictive reporting, talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, so what the predictive analytics piece does with turnover is anytime someone leaves your company, It uses AI to build what's called a decision tree. And the decision tree will compare the commonalities between those people who have left the organization. So if Kimberly leaves and she was getting paid $35 an hour and she worked for Aime, and then the next person that left was getting paid $30 an hour and also worked for Aime, it would start putting those things in common together and give them weight. So if Aime is the common factor, then it's going to predict, okay, Amy's team has a higher chance because she's had more people leave within the organization. It takes about 6 to 9 months for it to start being a little more accurate, right? We don't want it to make that decision tree based on 2 people that have left. Right. But it's just giving you that long-term view of your company and helping you address some of those things that aren't, I want to say, like hard skills. They're more soft skills, right? How are we building loyalty in our organization? Do people feel connected to what we're doing? Do people want to be here? And you can't, while analysis helps you come to that conclusion, it takes the HR team to really turn the ship if that's what's going on. And if they're too busy doing data entry, they can't do the bigger picture stuff to reflect that analysis. So
yeah, and I definitely agree. And that's a good data point because that's just one additional point of data for the HR professional, because typically if people are leaving from Amy's team, there are other things going on behind the scenes that HR is aware of. So, other things that we know about Aime, that is just another data point to help support. Let's send Aime to leadership training. Let's get Aime an executive coach. Right. Let's, help support and develop that manager, because those data is how we should be driving our decisions. Right. And systems, to your point, are the way that we will get more accurate and timely data. Timely is
key. Yeah.
And that we'll be able to get that to help drive the decisions in the organization. So tell me about a success story, like, an organization that you were like, I don't know if I'm going to ever close this deal. And talk to me a little bit about, what the things that you had to overcome were, and what was it that ultimately sealed the deal that they were like, yes, we're going to move forward.
Yeah. So before I was the sales director, I was a sales rep myself, but I worked in Denver. And so what I tell my sales reps all the time is that this is a long game. People evaluate their technology every 3 years. And you need to be that person that they trust, that they've had a conversation with, they've met. You want them to trust you, because we don't want to sell it if it's not a good fit for you either. And so in July, I had a manufacturing company come back to me. They were in Colorado Springs, and they said, we have a new CFO. She knows that I'm all in on Paycor. They had gone through the whole process last summer, and the CFO at that time said, nope, it's not on my radar. She was spending 70 hours a week they were hiring so many people. They had 100% turnover from January to July, because it's a tough job. It's manufacturing. They weren't organized. They didn't have timesheets. They're not on board. That reflects to your people too. And so she got a new CFO. She communicated to the CFO, if I don't have some sort of system, we either need 3 more people or, I can't work here anymore. And the CFO said, no problem. You choose what you went through this whole process. You choose what works for you. And they did a Paycor demo, like a refresh, and they signed within a week. And so, yeah, it's a long-term conversation, and you have to be able to show people how we're going to solve for problems, right? She wasn't getting timesheets in time. They were paying to current. They're going to adjust to arrears. They were using a payroll person, but then they couldn't get the timesheets to the pay. So there were all these little things. And unless we have what we call a needs analysis, it's a really in-depth conversation about your process. We want to show you where we can fix every single issue versus, here's the price. Well, it doesn't matter how much it costs. If it doesn't solve the timesheet issue, we're back to square one.
Absolutely. And let me just tell you, I don't know if people saw me or heard me roll my eyes when she said they were playing to current.
Yeah. I get heartburn.
That is a complete nightmare. If you are listening and you are paying to current, please stop today. and pay in the arrears because it is difficult to manage compliance.
Yeah, and like what if they take PTO on the last day you're paying to current and then you got to go back? Like no payroll system is going to be retroactive fully for that process. So
correct.
And you have to be able, like as a professional, I have to be able to communicate that to whomever I'm speaking with. You know, I'm more than a salesperson at this point. I'm a consultant, you know, so that's the difference.
Yes, and if you're in California, you're paying to current. Just open the checkbook. What else have we not talked about today that we need to discuss?
I think talking a little bit about leadership, like we touched on it earlier, that organizations are seeing frontline leaders retire. And if you aren't investing in your current team's growth opportunity, that's a big miss. You know, you're going to spend a lot of money replacing them if they leave. And what we know, just as an HR environment, is that engaged employees equal more profitable companies. But engaged employees come from leaders. They don't come from magic software. They come from people who want to have meaningful conversations, want to help you grow, want to align with you. And so I think organizations have to really focus on how they're growing leaders and measuring leadership effectiveness. Mm-hmm. And I think we're going to see that be more prevalent in the next few years of like internal mobility is the key to organizational success. And the last thing I'll say is that there are 10 million job openings. And even if everyone got one, we'd still have 4 million open jobs. So your organization is going to have to fight that for years to come. And that comes from the inside of your organization, not always from the outside.
Yes, and I definitely appreciate that comment as well, because a lot of organizations focus externally on their customer experience, but they don't spend enough time internally focusing on their employee experience. Yeah. And EX and CX are equally as important. So I think it's really important that people focus on that and really think about, to your point, the fact that the war for talent is not going to go away, and that you need to leverage data and systems to stay ahead of that. Like you said, you hired someone, that person had 3 offers already. Mm-hmm. So making sure that we are considering that, and there's no boundaries now. Everyone's is remote. Yeah. So I'm not just competing for Baltimore talent.
Oh, yeah.
I'm competing for United States talent, Canada talent. I'm competing against everyone. Yeah. And so I really have to think about that. And to your point, really developing leaders, leadership really creates the culture and significantly impacts the employee experience, which impacts retention.
Yes.
So it's all of the things. Exactly. Well, Aime, thank you so much for joining me today in the Speakeasy. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for joining us today for this episode of HR and Cocktails.